teach us more of the basics of fly casting, and one of the basics, of course, is the false cast. And why do we need the false cast?
The false cast is important because it sets you up to present the fly to the fish.
And it's a cast, too, that can be abused a lot, can it?
It sure is.
If your casting stroke goes bad, it's going to happen in the false cast, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
And one thing that we should also know, that in the old days, that false cast was our way of getting a lot of line out. And what Andy said, it was a way of presenting the fly. So we're going to talk about two aspects of this cast. So first of all, why don't you show us the false cast?
Well, the first thing you want to do is grab your rod. Grab it, put your thumb on top, grip it fairly firm, but don't squeeze the heck out of it. Grab the rod with your right hand in a fairly firm manner. And your line hand, whichever hand is not on the rod, will be your line hand. So hold that line. Now we're going to do our back cast. We're going to accelerate to that stopping position and come forward. Keeping that plane parallel to the ground or the water. Back and forth. Same tempo. Two separate motions that are exactly the same. So I accelerate to the stop in the back, accelerate to the stop in the front. Where people get in trouble is they work too hard at it and they get loose. You want a nice transfer of power, so firm that up and transfer that power into the rod. Let the rod do the work. It's a really easy thing to do. You just have to let the rod do the work. Trust that rod will get it out there.
It's really a tip cast. You're using the tip of the rod.
Exactly right.
Now if you let that handle rotate too much in your hand like that, your tip, if you can look right now and you can see your tip is clear way back. Your tip needs to be up here. And boy, you can really get your casting problems accentuated. You'll catch things behind you and by not having a good false cast.
Exactly right. And it'll change that plane. You want that plane of the loop, the line that I flick forward. When you watch when my rod tip comes forward, I flick that loop off the tip of my rod. The tighter that loop is, the less wind it's going to hang up on, and the flatter your cast is going to lay out there. So,
now you're going to present the line. Now what do you do there?
Nothing changes. It's just the same as a false cast stroke, but right when you get your line out there and your loop unfolds, you're just going to give up on your cast and follow the line down with the rod tip. So you get your line out there and then drop it.
There's a dark side of this false cast, and it can go really wild. People can get totally out of control. And it usually happens when either the stroke is too wide or they start breaking their wrist. Show us that dark side and what you can do to correct it.
Okay.
Well, there it is, real nice and wide. That's a very common to a lot of people out there. Now, what do we do to...
Well, we're just slowly going to clean this up. I'm going to slowly get that loop, whip that loop into shape.
Well, you're doing it by tightening your wrist and shortening your stroke.
Exactly. I'm making it easier.
Yes, you are. So as that rod goes back, if you just tighten that up, just watch what here. Okay, look at that. Just how much tight. Look, and miraculously, the line is back up on the plane. One of the things, too, is to realize that line's got to straighten out, isn't it?
Yes.
And so you've got to momentarily pause. And I tell people when I'm teaching the casting, you've got to still come to that absolute stop.
It is two separate motions. It's a back stop, wait for your line, forward stop, wait for your line. And as your line gets longer, you're making your cast longer, that pause is longer. It takes longer for that line to travel to the opposite ends of your cast.
And you actually have to open your stroke up. That's where that longer stroke comes in.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to start to teach people how to shoot a line. And we've talked about shooting it on a false cast. Rather than lengthening the false cast, you can do it literally with these graphite rods by just developing a high line speed and letting it go at the right time.
Exactly. If you watch when I come forward, just drop the line. Nothing happens. But if I put a little bit more speed and power into that front stroke, watch what happens. You shoot the line.
If you let it go too soon, it's got to go straight up the rod, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And here it's more pointed to where you want it to go, and it's just a matter of physics. It's going to pull out.
Right.
Let's see that again.
Okay. One false cast and bang.
And right there, you did the equivalent of 2 or 3 false casts adding line.
Exactly.
So that's probably something they're going to have to practice. Now, Andy, what about presentation? Obviously you shot a line, the line kind of crashed right into the water.
Right.
What is the next step?
The next step is to just fine-tune that. Just feel it a little bit more with the tip of your rod and set that down a little bit softer.
We call that backing off the power.
Backing off the power.
Now notice right there, really important, how he brought his arm back here. It's a natural movement. He made the cast and he brought the arm back. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Oh, very nice. And you do that after you make the cast. You make the cast and the rod is pointed to where you want it to go and you gently bring it back and that lowers the cast. Okay, now one of the things that can happen is if you don't back off the power and you stop, and a lot of beginning fly fishermen realize if they stop at the front part of that cast real quickly, the line will settle down. But it creates some problems, doesn't it?
Creates a lot of problems. You're going to lose a lot of flies. You could potentially break your rod by throwing that fly into your rod too. So let me just show you what happens.
Well, look at that present. That's pretty terrible.
That's pretty poor. My fish was out there 10 feet further.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're stopping too soon and not following through.
Exactly.
Sort of like in any kind of sport, whether it's a golf swing, you got to follow through.
Right.
Let's take a look at the right way you should do it. Very nicely. Okay, now let's say how you shouldn't do it. Again, look at the difference in the presentation. And when he's talking about that, if you stop too quickly about losing flies, here, let me just show, boom, how many of you had that happen? If you stop too quickly, that fly will catch, and it's kind of an unusual thing. What it does, it catches on your line with the hook when you stop too abruptly, and then it follows it down and makes the most beautiful overhand knot, boom, like that. And we call that a wind knot, which there is no wind here, and I can pull this leader up right now and feel the knots on it. And it's really a bad cast knot. But we're really polite in fly fishing. So when you stop real quickly, that fly is going to travel down and just do a nice little overhead knot. Now you may not know it until the fish hits, and when you set the hook, boom.
Lost the fish.
You lost the fish. So again, the presentation with the rod, but you know there's something you were doing. I want you to do another one of those nice presentation casts for me. Now, you did this by holding the line on your right hand. Isn't it really important to know what to do with your hands?
Oh, for sure. If you watch bugs out there on the water, as soon as those flies hit the water, they get eaten. And it's the same when you have a fly on the end of your line. So as soon as you make your cast, there's a good chance a fish is going to eat it right away. And if you're not ready, you're not going to catch the fish.
So what should they do? Let's watch the hands now. Hands are really important here. Now, when he lets go of that line, look where his hands go. Right over to be underneath the finger. Now, if a fish takes it, you're just going to do like another cast, just like that. And he's already got the fish on that way. Now, one of the important parts of managing our line is also fishing, which is setting the hook. And I know there's two ways you can do that, one wrong and one right, right?
Right.
So, okay, so we got the line underneath the trigger finger. Now what do we do from there?
We pinch the line against the cork grip of the rod and pick up with the same power that you would make your back cast.
And there you got the fish on it.
There's the fish.
Now then you can use your right hand to strip in.
Exactly.
And you don't have to. Now what happens if you don't have the finger underneath it?
If I don't have the finger underneath it,
first you got to reach down.
You got to reach down.
The fish could be taking your fly.
Right. And now we're going to pull.
You pulled it right out of their mouth.
Right out of their mouth.
And you had too much energy going to the fly, and then you had to, if you did get lucky and you had him on, you have your hand over here.
Yeah, well, what do you do now?
Well, you try to get it over, you bite the line, right?
All right, yeah, yeah.
Get Giardia from the water. Let's just show you what can happen. Cast the line to him. And okay, so you get lucky with that, with reusing your right hand. Hold on. Now, right there, you broke the line off because it was too much pressure. But say you did it even luckier, then that comes and you hook the fish with that. Okay, you go up, set it hard. Now you still got a problem. How are you going to get your line in? Like that? Okay. So I want to see how you do that. Come on. Let's see. This is the comical part of fly fishing. You can have a lot of fun watching people try to do that, but it's not a good thing to do.
And that's what I ended up doing, is putting it right underneath my trigger finger.
So why not have it there from the start?
Exactly.
All right, folks. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take you through some exercises, through all the basics, so you can work on the lawn, at home, practicing these, and then we're going to get you ready to go out on the stream. We're going to join Pete Erickson from